Hardwood Heroes. 25 legendary NBA stars who changed the game. 1960s, 1990s. Introduction. Welcome basketball fans. Today, we're taking a nostalgic journey through 4 incredible decades of NBA history. We'll be highlighting 25 legendary players who dominated the courts from the 1960s through the 1990s. The superstars who changed the game forever, and whose legacies continue to inspire generations of players. Let's jump right in. The legends. 1. Michael Jordan. Born February 17, 1963 in Brooklyn, New York, Michael Jeffrey Jordan grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, before becoming the greatest basketball player of all time. During his prime in the 80s and 90s, Jordan lived in Chicago while leading the Bulls to 6 NBA championships. Now 62, MJ resides in Jupiter, Florida, where he oversees his billion-dollar empire and owns the Charlotte Hornets. Quick fact, Jordan was actually cut from his high school varsity team as a sophomore, using that rejection as motivation to become the unstoppable force we all remember. 2. Magic Johnson. Irvin. Magic Johnson Jr. was born August 14, 1959, in Lansing, Michigan. During his legendary career with the Lakers in the 80s, Magic lived in Bel Air, California. The 6'9" point guard revolutionized the position with his extraordinary court vision and passing skills. At 65, Magic now splits his time between Beverly Hills and Michigan. He's transformed himself into a successful businessman with investments in movie theaters, Starbucks franchises, and part ownership of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Quick fact, Magic earned his nickname in high school when, at just 15 years old, he recorded a triple-double of 36 points, 18 rebounds, and 16 assists, prompting a sports writer to call his performance Magic. 3. Larry Bird. Larry Joe Bird was born December 7, 1956, in West Baden Springs, Indiana. During his prime with the Celtics in the 80s, Larry Legend lived in Brookline, Massachusetts. The small-town kid from French Lick transformed the Celtics franchise with his deadly shooting, basketball IQ, and fierce competitiveness. Now 68, Bird lives a quiet life back in his beloved Indiana. Quick fact, Bird was famously superstitious. Before every game, he would run exactly 3 miles, eat exactly the same meal, and arrive at the arena exactly 3 hours and 45 minutes before tip-off. 4. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Born Ferdinand Louis Alcindor Jr. on April 16, 1947, in New York City. Kareem dominated basketball for 2 decades. During his prime in the 70s and 80s, he lived in Los Angeles while becoming the NBA's all-time leading scorer, a record that stood for 38 years. At 77, Kareem still resides in Southern California, where he's become an accomplished author, historian, and social activist. Quick fact, the skyhook, Kareem's signature unstoppable shot, was virtually unblockable due to his 7.2 height and unique technique that kept the ball far from defenders. 5. Wilt Chamberlain. Wilton. Norman Chamberlain was born August 21, 1936, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. During his dominant years in the 60s and early 70s, the Stilt lived between Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Los Angeles as he set seemingly unbreakable records. Wilt passed away in 1999 at age 63 at his Bel Air mansion. Quick fact, on March 2, 1962, Chamberlain scored an incredible 100 points in a single game against the New York Knicks, a record that still stands and may never be broken. Even more remarkable, he averaged 50.4 points per game for the entire 1961-62 season. 6. Bill Russell. William Felton. Russell was born February 12, 1934 in Monroe, Louisiana, but grew up in Oakland, California. During his unprecedented championship run in the 50s and 60s, Russell lived in Reading, Massachusetts, while leading the Celtics to 11 NBA titles in 13 years as both player and coach. Russell passed away in 2022 at age 88. Quick fact, despite being one of the greatest winners in sports history, Russell battled racism throughout his career in Boston. He channeled this adversity into becoming a prominent civil rights activist, receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011 for his efforts both on and off the court. 7. Julius Irving Julius Winfield. Irving II, better known as Dr. J, was born February 22, 1950, in East Meadow, New York. During his high-flying days in the 70s and 80s, Irving lived in Philadelphia, while revolutionizing the game with his above-the-rim style. Now 74, Dr. J resides in Atlanta, Georgia. Quick fact: before joining the NBA, Irving played in the ABA, where he won 3 championships and participated in the league's first slam dunk contest in 1976, cementing his status as the godfather of modern aerial basketball. 8. Isaiah Thomas Isaiah. Lord Thomas III was born April 30, 1961, in Chicago, Illinois. During his prime with the Bad Boys Pistons in the late 80s and early 90s, Thomas lived in the Detroit suburb of Bloomfield Hills. The diminutive point guard led the Pistons to back-to-back championships, despite standing just 6'1" in a league of giants. Now 63, Isaiah lives in New York, where he's been involved in broadcasting and basketball operations. Quick fact: Thomas was actually named after his father, who named him after the biblical figure Isaiah, but a clerical error at the hospital resulted in the unusual spelling of Isaiah. 9. Hakeem Olajuwon. Hakeem Abdul-Jabbar was born January 21, 1963, in Lagos, Nigeria. The Dream didn't even play basketball until age 15, originally excelling at soccer. During his championship years in the 90s, Olajuwon lived in Houston, Texas, where he led the Rockets to back-to-back titles in 1994 and 1995. Now 62, Hakeem splits his time between Jordan and Houston. Quick fact: Olajuwon's footwork was so spectacular that it became known as the Dream Shake, a series of pivots, fakes, and spins that left defenders helpless. After retirement, he even trained numerous NBA stars, including Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Dwight Howard on his post moves. 10. Charles Barkley. Charles Wade Barkley was born February 20, 1963, in Leeds, Alabama. During his NBA prime in the 80s and 90s, Sir Charles lived in Philadelphia, Phoenix, and Houston, while becoming one of the most dominant rebounders despite being just 6'6". Now 62, Barkley lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, where he's become one of basketball's most outspoken and entertaining analysts. Quick fact: Barkley's nickname, the Round Mound of Rebound, highlighted his unusual physical build for a dominant NBA player, shorter than most power forwards but compensating with strength, explosiveness, and incredible determination. 11. David Robinson. David Maurice Robinson was born August 6, 1965, in Key West, Florida. The Admiral earned his nickname from his service in the U.S. Naval Academy before joining the Spurs. During his Hall of Fame career in the 90s, Robinson lived in San Antonio, Texas, where he won 2 NBA championships. At 59, he still resides in San Antonio, focusing on philanthropy and education initiatives. Quick fact: Robinson scored 71 points in the final game of the 1993-94 regular season to win the scoring title over Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most remarkable single-game performances in NBA history. 12. Patrick Ewing. Patrick Aloysius Ewing was born August 5, 1962, in Kingston, Jamaica, before moving to Cambridge, Massachusetts as a child. During his dominant years in the 80s and 90s, Ewing lived in the New York area while becoming the Knicks' all-time leading scorer. Now 62, Ewing has pursued coaching and currently resides in Washington, D.C. Quick fact: when Ewing entered the 1985 NBA draft, conspiracy theories emerged after the Knicks won the first-ever draft lottery. Some claimed the NBA rigged the process to send the Georgetown star to New York, one of the league's biggest markets. Commissioner David Stern denied this for years, but the theory remains one of basketball's great controversies. 13. Scottie Pippen. Scottie Maurice Pippen was born September 25, 1965, in Hamburg, Arkansas. During the Bulls' championship dynasty, in the 90s, Pippen lived in Chicago's North Shore while establishing himself as one of the greatest defensive players ever. Now, 59, Pippen lives in Los Angeles, California. Quick fact: despite being a 7-time All-Star and 6-time NBA champion, Pippen came from incredibly humble beginnings. He was the youngest of 12 children, and his father was disabled after a workplace accident. Pippen began as a team manager at Central Arkansas University, before a growth spurt transformed him into a player. 14. Karl Malone. Karl Anthony Malone was born July 24, 1963, in Summerfield, Louisiana. During his remarkable 19-year career, the mailman lived in Salt Lake City while forming one of the greatest duos in NBA history with John Stockton. Now, 61, Malone lives on a sprawling ranch in his home state of Louisiana. Quick fact, Malone earned his nickname the Mailman because he always delivered, becoming the second highest scorer in NBA history with 36,928 points. Despite this consistency, Malone never won an NBA championship, losing twice in the finals to Michael Jordan's Bulls. 15. John Houston Stockton was born March 26, 1962 in Spokane, Washington. During his 19-year career with the Utah Jazz, Stockton lived in Salt Lake City while becoming the NBA's all-time leader in assists and steals. Now 63, Stockton returned to his hometown of Spokane after retirement, where he leads a relatively private life. Quick fact, Stockton was the ultimate Iron Man. During one stretch of his career, he played in 609 consecutive games. Even more impressive, in 19 NBA seasons, he missed only 22 games total, with 18 of those coming in a single season. 16. Shaquille O'Neal. Rashawn O'Neal was born March 6, 1972, in Newark, New Jersey. During his dominant prime in the 90s, Shaq lived in Orlando and later Los Angeles, while revolutionizing the center position with his unprecedented combination of size, power, and athleticism. Now 53, the larger-than-life personality lives in Atlanta, Georgia, balancing his business empire with his entertaining analyst role. Quick fact, beyond basketball, Shaq has released 4 rap albums, served as a reserve police officer in multiple jurisdictions, earned a doctorate degree in education, and appeared in numerous movies and TV shows. 17. Dominique Wilkins. Jacques Dominique Wilkins was born January 12, 1960, in Paris, France, where his father was stationed with the U.S. Air Force. During his high-flying years in the 80s and early 90s, the human highlight film lived in Atlanta while engaging in legendary scoring duels with Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. Now 65, Wilkins remains in Atlanta as a Hawks executive and broadcaster. Quick fact, Wilkins' epic duel with Larry Bird in Game 7 of the 1988 Eastern Conference semifinals is considered one of the greatest playoff performances ever. Wilkins scored 47 points, but Bird answered with 34 of his own, including 20 in the fourth quarter to win the game. 18. Clyde Austin Drexler was born June 22, 1962, in New Orleans, Louisiana, but grew up in Houston, Texas. During his prime years in the 80s and early 90s, Clyde the Glide lived in Portland, Oregon, before returning to Houston to win a championship alongside Hakeem Olajuwon. At 62, Drexler still resides in Houston, where he's involved in business ventures and occasionally serves as a basketball analyst. Quick fact, Drexler, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Larry Michaud formed the Phi Slama Jama fraternity at the University of Houston, a high-flying basketball team that reached 3 straight Final Fours from 1982-1984. 19. Gary Payton. Dwayne Payton was born July 23, 1968 in Oakland, California. During his prime years in the 90s, the Glove lived in Seattle while establishing himself as one of the greatest defensive point guards ever. Now 56, Payton divides his time between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. Quick fact, Payton earned the nickname The Glove during the 1993 Western Conference Finals when his cousin called him after watching him closely defend Phoenix Suns star Kevin Johnson, saying Payton's defense fit Johnson like a glove. 20. Reginald Wayne Miller was born August 24, 1965, in Riverside, California. During his entire 18-year NBA career, Miller lived in Indianapolis while becoming the Pacers' all-time leading scorer and one of the deadliest three-point shooters in history. Now 59, Miller lives in Malibu, California, where he works as a successful broadcaster. Quick fact, Miller's legendary trash-talking and clutch shooting made him the ultimate Madison Square Garden villain, most famously scoring 8 points in 8.9 seconds against the New York Knicks in the 1995 playoffs, punctuated by his iconic choke, signed directed at filmmaker and Knicks superfan Spike Lee. 21. Dennis Rodman. Dennis Keith Rodman was born May 13, 1961, in Trenton, New Jersey, but grew up in Dallas, Texas. During his NBA career spanning the late 80s through the 90s, the Worm lived in Detroit, San Antonio, Chicago, and Los Angeles, while becoming perhaps the greatest rebounder pound for pound in NBA history. Now 63, Rodman has lived a nomadic lifestyle, most recently residing in South Florida. Quick fact: before becoming an NBA star, Rodman worked as a janitor at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport after high school. He was only 5'11" at the time and had never played organized basketball before experiencing a growth spurt that took him to 6'7". 22. George Gervin. George Gervin was born April 27, 1952, in Detroit, Michigan. During his prime years in the 70s and early 80s, the Iceman lived in San Antonio while revolutionizing the finger roll and winning 4 NBA scoring titles. Now 73, Gervin still calls San Antonio home, where he runs the George Gervin Youth Center. Quick fact: Gervin got his Iceman nickname because of his cool demeanor on the court, never showing emotion regardless of how spectacular his plays were. He was known for never sweating during games, further cementing the icy reputation. 23. Elgin Baylor. Elgin Gay Baylor was born September 16, 1934, in Washington, D.C. During his revolutionary career in the 60s, Baylor lived in Los Angeles while becoming the first NBA player to truly play above the rim with his acrobatic moves. Baylor passed away in 2021 at age 86 in Los Angeles. Quick fact: despite his incredible career, Baylor never won an NBA championship. In a cruel twist of fate, he retired 9 games into the 1971-72 season due to knee problems, and the Lakers immediately went on a 33-game winning streak and won the championship without him. 24. Moses Malone. Moses Eugene Malone was born March 23, 1955, in Petersburg, Virginia. During his prime years in the late 70s and early 80s, the chairman of the boards lived in Houston and Philadelphia while dominating the offensive glass like no one before or since. Malone passed away in 2015 at age 60. Quick fact: Moses made history as the first player to go directly from high school to professional basketball when he signed with the ABA's Utah Stars in 1974. His work ethic was legendary. Malone's famous faux prediction that the 76ers would sweep each playoff round in 4 games showcased his confident, no-nonsense approach. 25. Oscar Robertson. Oscar Palmer Robertson was born November 24, 1938, in Charlotte, Tennessee, but grew up in Indianapolis. During his revolutionary career in the 60s and early 70s, the Big O lived in Cincinnati and Milwaukee, while becoming the only player in NBA history to average a triple-double for an entire season, until Russell Westbrook matched the feat 55 years later. Now 86, Robertson lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. Quick fact: beyond his on-court legacy, Robertson changed basketball forever off the court as president of the NBA Players Association, leading the fight for free agency that transformed professional sports economics forever. Conclusion: these 25 legends revolutionized basketball and left an indelible mark on American sports culture. From Wilt's dominance to Jordan's airborne artistry, each brought something special to the hardwood. Which of these icons was your favorite to watch? Did we miss anyone you think deserved a spot? Drop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe for more nostalgic dives into sports history. Until next time, keep those memories of greatness alive.